Hello and welcome to the NewsX Sunday Guardian Roundtable. Well, the budget is just around the corner, and we're hearing different things about the economy. Of course, yes, the IMF figures show that the economy is on a rebound. We've had a lot of disagreements, or rather differences between the BJP version and the Congress version of the economy. BJP says, oh, it's a V-shaped recovery. Congress says it's K-shaped. Some sections are doing well, some are not. But at the end of the day, there is no denying the fact that the unorganized sector needs attention, the salaried class needs attention. We need jobs. There are a whole lot of sectors that have been affected by COVID, such as travel, tourism, manufacturing needs to get back again. So these are something exactly with the budget is coming. What is the things that our finance minister can focus on? What can we really do to get the economy started again? What are the business sectors that need special attention? What is the state of the economy now? I have a panel of mixed experts really. There is Janbir Singh. He's the director of Chelavi Airport Services India. They handle as many as ground handling of 7 airports, including Delhi, Bombay, and also cargo. They handle the cargo also. Govind Raj Etiraj, he is the founder at India Spend and Boom. Alam Srinivas, business editor at Outlook India, and of course Dheeraj Nair. He was formerly with the Niti Aayog, and now he's the chief economist at Vedanta. So Dheeraj, are we doing well? Are we doing badly? I mean, I'm not going to go into the logics, the politics of it, but something definitely also needs to be done. So what are the sectors that we can focus on?
So overall, Priya, I mean, obviously it's been a major shock, this whole COVID thing. And that said, the recovery has probably been better than a lot of people expected. And I think the reason for that is that, once we opened up the economy from the lockdown and so on, the cases of COVID did not go up or shoot up, perhaps like the way they have in other parts of the world, which have led to, repeated lockdowns elsewhere. So in our case, for whatever reason, and you said we won't go into the logic of it, but the fact is that this opening up has coincided with a decline in cases now. So obviously, the main reason the economy had collapsed was because people were locked out of their businesses and their demand had collapsed and there was uncertainty. So to that extent, things are better. And this IMF forecast you mentioned of next year, again, it is to be expected because this year is a contraction. So on the low base, it's calculated on a base, right? So the 11% or 10% is going to be on a low base. So while of course we should be happy about it, it does not mean that we are now on a double-digit growth trajectory, forever. Okay, so it's going to be a one-off thing, but yes, we will get back to where we were before COVID at some point during this next financial year. But let's face it, that's 2 years lost, and for a country like India, that's a high cost, as you said, in terms of jobs, in terms of sectors, in terms of companies which may not come back. So I think all those things are still a reality. Of course, without going into politics, one can safely say recovery has been better, but there was also a fact of life before COVID that the economy was slowing down. It needed another round of structural reforms because really nothing had happened. GST had been done, yes, but I mean, again, in a very complex way, so it hadn't yielded the kind of growth dividends that one expected. So I think a further round of structural reforms was definitely needed even pre-COVID. Some of them have been done, but many more remain. And I hope, therefore, this budget, more than what the accounting exercise that it is, there is an opportunity here, like in 1991. I mean, how many of us remember 1991, the exact duty changes or tax changes or any of those things that were done or spending decisions? We remember it because it set out a certain vision for the future. So I think this budget also, apart from whatever tinkering goes on, it has to define, India's trajectory for the next 10, 20 years. I think that is really what we are looking for. And the changes should signal in that direction because there was a problem before COVID also. COVID in a way has kind of flattened everything and given us a clean slate for many things. But I think, the fact is that before the COVID economy was not doing great, and this is the opportunity now to take off.
Well, Alan, there was a slowdown before lockdown, so as Dheeraj was saying, maybe optimistic way of looking at it, that it's flattened everything and given us an opportunity to restructure. So is this Modi's 91 moment? We've heard people talk about that also. So is that, you think that something really drastic needs to be done? Alan?
Yeah, I think there are 2-3 points that I would like to mention. One is that let's not talk about a V-shaped or a K-shaped or any other shape. I think what is going to happen to the economy is a wonky W-shape. So I was saying it's going to be a wonky W-shaped recovery because of the contraction. Things will kind of go up immediately due to the low base effect that Dheeraj talked about. And then things may actually come down. And finally, after say 2 or 3 years, we will see a consistent growth. So it will be kind of a topsy-turvy kind of a growth. And certain sectors will do very well. Some sectors will do very badly, may need, in fact, 2, 3, 4 years to recover, like maybe aviation to some extent, hospitality to some extent. The informal sector, for instance, is completely decimated. We have no clue what has happened to the informal sector. And the current growth figures are actually equating the growth in informal sector the same as the formal sector, which may not be true. In fact, the informal sector will continue to contract for several quarters before they actually pick up. So I think we need to figure out the nuances of the growth rather than look at the overall growth. I think what the government and the finance minister needs to do is to look at each sector specifically, organized versus unorganized, then the sectors within the organized sectors, segments within the unorganized sectors, and deal with each one in a specific manner to boost growth. I think this one size fit all or one shoe fit all kind of strategy will not work. It has to be a very nuanced, kind of fragmented strategy to tackle each sector separately and with different kinds of incentives and boosts.
Good point. Govind, you're in Mumbai, so you also interviewed a lot of business leaders and looked at various sections. So where do you think the hospitality, travel, of course, that's also I'm going to be asking Janveer more on that. But what are the other sectors, and especially the informal sector? That's really what needs special attention.
Hey, thanks, Priya. So, so if I were to take a step back, if you look at the pandemic period, over 100 million jobs were lost, mostly in the informal sector. The good news is that almost all those jobs are back. So that tells us that we are a very, very resilient economy and a country. And when you say economy or country, you mean the people in it, the entrepreneurs, the business houses, even those who maybe were part of the migrant workforce, which came back. So it shows you that there is intrinsic resilience in this economy. Now, however, we cannot be celebrating resilience forever. The adrenaline of resilience has to translate into a strategy for growth. And that is something that we've been traditionally weak in, maybe more so in recent years. And what will happen as we go forward is if we don't have a clear strategy for growth, then we will again fall back to some level which is not the most optimum that we would desire. So that's the first part. And that's a general point, of course. The second is that, Dheeraj referred to the 1991 moment. So what happened in the 1990s is that we opened up both markets, which is we opened up, lowered our tariff barriers and allowed imports to come in more freely. And we also opened up domestic markets. So, which is an unusual situation. Many countries first open up domestic markets and then allow integration with global markets. So we did both. So anyway, that was a good thing. It caused a lot of pain, but it was a good thing because eventually the outcome was strong. If you look at what's happening today, we are again raising the walls on imports and and products coming in from overseas, maybe with some focus on China, but in general, we are definitely becoming more protectionist. So now that's largely a political call and partly an economic call. So my view on this is that we therefore need to say, okay, what do we do to now make it more efficient for domestic producers and domestic competition? So even assuming, let's say, we're not going to lower the global tariff barriers, so what can we do to ensure that products and services that are manufactured or served in India can do so far more efficiently with far more incentives, so that at the end of the day, the consumer in India is still able to maybe benefit or see price benefits as he or she would have were we a completely open economy. So I think that's the second point. The third, I would say, is privatization and disinvestment. I mean, we've been talking about it for, again, maybe 3 decades, and we've really not done anywhere near as much as we've talked about it. So I saw a fresh announcement saying we've got a fresh plan for disinvestment and privatization. We really need to see action, for if nothing else, to demonstrate that the government is getting out of areas that it should not be in and was never meant to be in, except for maybe 1 or 2 strategic areas like defense and maybe oil and gas, which we've agreed that it should be there. So that needs to move, and obviously that also helps you raise revenue. The markets hit 50,000 and have now receded a little bit, but nevertheless, there is no moment like this to start unloading stock if you want to, and you will also raise revenue. And last point is that dealing with the tax department in India has never been too easy, but it has been particularly tough in recent years. And this is not something that people say very openly for various reasons, but it's been very tough. And I think while the government has acknowledged that there were many laws that were being misused, criminal procedures were being brought in where clearly they were not needed, I don't know if there is enough being done to give people a sense of calm. Whoever I talk to, particularly small and medium businesses, I think there is always that nagging fear that you're going to be served a notice, your bank account will be frozen for nothing more than maybe being 15 days delayed in a GST payment, for which you are really not so responsible, except that your business has taken a hit. So I think there is an overall tax administration ease of doing business issue, which is at one level very ephemeral, but I think that's something that a lot of business people face and we should focus on. So I would limit my responses to these 4 points. Thank you.
Jangveer, you're really the man on the ground. You represent the business side also, especially the sector, the aviation sector. Has this, what does the growth look like on ground? I think domestic tourism at least travel has taken off. I don't know about tourism in terms of that. And are you, is the industry expecting something from the budget? What are you hoping for?
Priya, the way I'd like to take this forward, particularly to our industry, from where Alam left off, we look at this as a redefining of the parameters in aviation. The way I say it, there's no handbook to this before. So, if you look at economic contraction before, there are certain handbooks and certain policies you can bring in to stimulate economics. Even in war conditions, there's heavy consumption and, things happen. But a pandemic is just pulling the plug. So what really happens is consumption is there, but people can't access it because there's no income. And it's just a standstill. So the momentum in the economy is just taken away, and for us to restart our wheels. So the last time the pandemic happened was 1918, and there is no way you can even take pieces from there, because the economy in the world has changed. We are so integrated and it's digitized. Now coming to aviation, it's particularly different. So we have to rethink a lot of things. I know that I will have to integrate being safe on points of pathogens and all added to my security costs. At the same time, I would have thought that aviation should have had a lesser impact, and airlines should be doing better because oil is cheaper than it was ever before. But these are conflicting arguments. So oil is so cheap, and yet airlines are suffering because there is no movement. And there's no movement because there's no disposable income in the hands of the people. So if the best salaries that were paid out were for 2 months or 3 months, but there was an additional 6 months, let's say an average I'm taking, that people didn't get any real or expendable income. Now, if you don't have that, so consumption, I believe, completely drives an economy. So that's why, we have to find, aviation will grow, but so it's absolutely the mandatory travel that's happening. But mandatory travel does not grow aviation. And aviation has become extremely integrated and complex because it's not only to ground handling services. Each airport is actually an independent economy in itself. If you may look at hospitality, but airports also include hotels inside. So you got hotels, you got malls, so it's a little ecosystem, which is really complex. And all of that's only driven by consumption. So, if you had even business travel was great. That's why duty free does so well. People are traveling, you'd buy, so it had its own economy generating in there. So we look forward to all of that. But I think if we do not redefine our business models, and we know for sure the parameters have changed, it was nowhere the same. So if I go by the same yardstick I did as pre-COVID, I believe that we are bound to we can't achieve the results we are looking for. So I have to look beyond the box, outside the box, to try and understand what the new parameters I'm going to live with in the world. Because we don't know if this pandemic is going to end here, how we're going to deal with it, V-shape, W-shape, K-shape, that all is, it's a prediction. If this new variant, like you talk about, UK variant just steps in a bigger way, all of a sudden you're down the valley again. So I have to look an extended horizon, that how can I keep it all alive? So that's my opinion on it.
Right, Priya, just very quickly what he said, and I think that's where what I meant by flatten the thing. That it's given you or forced you or nudged you to think out of the box. Now, Jangbir and the private sector will definitely think out of the box. I have no doubt. I also come from the private sector. Everyone is innovating, digitizing, thinking of new models. But can the government also think out of the box? Because government doesn't have to fight for survival like the private sector or companies have to. But I think in the sense that this gives them an opportunity to do that.
And you know what, Alam also mentioned, or someone mentioned disinvestment. Where does the government get them? Everybody agrees you need to bring back revenue, bring back spend in the market. How does that happen?
No, I think, again, we have to be very careful about this spending and revenue thing. So I think I agree with Govind on the disinvestment. I mean, there's a lot of assets. There are 250 odd public sector companies, doing all. You cannot possibly, even if you want to count strategic ones, there will not be more than 10 out of those 250, right? So I think there's a huge potential there. And there's a lot of appetite right now for assets of all kinds, right, in the market. And I think the point on money, I think you have to be creative again. So the government will again reflexively, Govind mentioned tax, is to tax, the existing set of people, because that's really all you have. You can squeeze them a little more, but you really can't do anything more. But I think get creative, because the world has never had this kind of liquidity before, the kind that we are seeing now and at the low interest rates we are seeing now. So, creative ways, for example, for infrastructure, set up a development finance institution, which can leverage whatever equity it gets, but then, get money from abroad, money which is looking for investment avenues. So I think the government needs to get creative about institutional setups also, because you're right, there's a need. They've committed, huge 1 trillion for infrastructure over the next 5 years. How is this going to come? I mean, hopefully not from more taxes on all of us, because that will again depress consumption, depress investment. That's what more taxes will do. So you have to find more creative ways to finance your need, and disinvestment and monetization of assets is certainly one very promising. It's not only PSUs, Priya, there's a lot of land the government has. They've done some amount of airports, highways, but a lot of land defense services have, railways have, it's just lying vacant. It's not being used. So monetize those, right? What is it for ultimately? So I think look for alternative non-tax revenues is what I would say now, because if you go the tax route, then you'll again depress consumption and investment, which will not lead to a sustained recovery.
So Alam, do you want to comment on what everybody said, or any other thoughts that you want to share?
I would like to add one crucial point, that when we talk about the budget, and as is happening in this kind of panel discussion, we invariably talk about manufacturing, industry, and services. I think the key difference here, and at this point in time, is that if you look at the GDP figures from April to September last year, India was saved by the farm sector.
So Priya, you talked about taxes. I think all indications are, whether we like it or not, there is going to be some increase in taxes, whether it will be additional surcharge, whether it will be a cess on a cess. And God knows we already have enough cesses floating and hanging above us so far. So I think something is likely to come, because among other things, it sends a signal that, remember that there was an Oxfam report recently which said that, the number of the wealth in the hands of billionaires has shot up, anywhere between 19 and 35%, whether you're in India or globally, in the time of the pandemic. So, these are not very good signals. Obviously, a government elected with elected representatives would like to react. I'm not saying to this report, but this is common knowledge now. And the other thing that has happened during the pandemic is the greater monopolization of businesses. Some businesses have become bigger, stronger, and which is why many of the stock prices are going up as well. So things have changed, and therefore there will be some kind of response, and I guess that we cannot help. But the point that I'm saying is that maybe even if the government has no choice and will raise taxes in some form, whether at the personal or the corporate tax level, I think could it do other things? Could it, for instance, have a clearer blueprint about greater private sector participation in healthcare? 80% of in India is already with the private sector. But I think what the pandemic has shown is that you need to work in a far more integrated way with government and policy to achieve greater or better outcomes. So what could be the blueprint that we could see that would show, one is of course greater investment in healthcare, but also equally greater and more creative participation, to use the word creative from Dheeraj, from the private sector to improve access in terms of health outcomes. So I think health is clearly something that is going to be the bear in the room and has to be addressed, because that's something that we need to use as a trigger to improve overall healthcare access and healthcare outcomes. I mean, so the insurance may be one response, maybe better distributed, let's say, public healthcare systems could be another response. I mean, all of that is there, but I think there is a lot of ideation and creativity that needs to go into this, as it has to go into what I was talking about, growth. I mean, I think we are definitely short of ideas, and we need talent and ideas to fill those gaps.
Jangvi, apart from your sector, you also you have a lot of friends who are businessmen who are working. What is the expectation? What is the mood like? What do they expecting from the government? Are they expecting anything, or they have to say, usually I think most people have started to fear the budget statement rather than look forward to it.
Well, Priya, just like Govind was just saying, it's you're going to go for higher taxation. But the need of the hour is we need to get our economy chugging back, and I believe that you need to put expendable income in the hands of the people, and that's more essential. And I believe that since we deal with a very large labor force, and with some of my other friends, we need to tailor make new products, especially in labor laws, considering, and that's why, so unskilled labor is a substantial part of it. Now, how do you bring them under the umbrella that it's created, even if it's semi-organized? And this is where I mean that we have to think out of the box. So this is a new environment, this is a new economy we are dealing with. It's never going to be the same again, as you'll also want to prepare for future such events. These are black swan events, but they are going to occur when we don't know. So if India is a unique economy, we have a substantial amount of unskilled labor which is there and which is unaccounted for. We have to have new labor laws that create the perfect environment for this, and if you don't have a system where expendable income comes to them, so you may start taxing, to what effect? The government was just going to match up with expenditure, but at the end of the day, it is the consumption which will drive our economy. So if I do not have the common man coming to travel for even a short vacation, how is it going to work? So as much as America is completely, it's a developed nation and they have large reserves, they print their own money without anything. But the fact is they pumped in that money for those months to each individual citizenship. And that is what kept their economy going. Reason because the citizens did not go to work, but their expendable income was available to them. And that kept consumption going and whatever else they were doing. And that means a huge part of the industry was still working. On the contrary, we achieved a massive contraction because people were relying on savings, and now India is a country which is driven by heavy savings compared to the Western world. But again, FD rates have gone down tremendously. So, that money is being pushed into another market. I think the really low-income group citizens have to be addressed for that. And being on the fringes of aviation and or hospitality and all, for me, they are the customers. I'm looking forward to, just to give you a little example on what our earlier projections were. If an equivalent paying passenger from railway moves to airline, it will only require about 2% of them. The volume of air travel almost doubles. But now I cannot even match that because people are scared of spending. So unless it's mandatory. So I believe the key lies in the government to find out how to firstly liberalize their labor laws and create new products. So you have laws to protect them, and yet it becomes part of the economy. And secondly, we need to increase expendable income.
I agree with you.
Priya, I think on that, this is a big debate that keeps going on, right? Should we put cash in people's bank accounts directly or not? Obviously, the United States and Canada, as Jangvi was saying, has done it and done it quite effectively. I don't know, for some reason we seem to shy away, and maybe we fear that there'll be too much leakage. Maybe we fear that it's not going to achieve the desired impact. But I think we need to at least start thinking in a very, very concrete way about doing that. Now maybe it's too late, but the next time it happens, put cash in people's pockets in a way that they can spend directly instead of through through sort of layers and layers of subsidies and benefits and so on.
In fact, Priya, I think where Jagbir is absolutely right. In India, GDP out of GDP is 100, consumption contributes almost 60, 59, 60. It's the biggest part of India's GDP. So I think until that begins revving, government spending is a very small part. It's 13, 14%, right? So until if the government wants to take out of the consumer's hand and put it into its own hand to spend, I think the effect will not be as strong as if consumers are allowed to spend. That is my view. So I think, therefore, I know there's this worry that equity prices and asset prices have done very well, so the rich have done better than that's why billionaires' wealth has gone up. There's nothing else. It's not about cronyism, connections, or anything else. It's just that the equity markets and asset markets are doing so well because of the ample liquidity. That's why they've become wealthier. That's a fact, right? But I think the response to this crisis, again, that's what I would urge, that like 91, we need a slightly forward-looking budget. Don't think about this year or next year or your deficit for this year or next year or taxes for this year or next year. Think out of the box for what will it be like in the next 5 or 10 years. Because, if growth comes back, your taxes will also go up. Ultimately, everything comes down to growth, and growth will be driven by consumption and investment, in my view. So anything you do, again, I'm repeating it, but if you do squeeze those now, then you may, save yourself, or you may make some political points this year. But, ultimately, if you're looking at the story of the country, it needs to go somewhere fast in the next 5 or 10 years. It's not only about this year. That's my view. Then this is a moment. India always reforms in a crisis. We've said this before on your show. So let's not waste this opportunity to do something big.
India always reforms in a crisis. And I think the government, it's got its crisis. Let's see if we get our reforms. But that's it. Thank you all for joining in this discussion. And we'll talk to you post-budget. Thank you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.